Soft morning birdsong, distant, then fading into silence. Picture it. The morning sun rising over Ile-de-France. Golden light spilling across marble, catching the crystal, gilding the gates. Versailles, the most famous palace in the world, the center of European power, the throne of the Sun King, the jewel of an entire civilization. Everything the eye could see was perfection. And yet, if you had been standing there, truly standing there, on any morning in the 17th century, the first thing to reach you would not have been the beauty. It would have been the smell. Blue and deliberate. Louis XIV, the Sun King, had done something extraordinary. He had taken a swampy, unremarkable hunting ground and transformed it into the most glamorous address in Europe. Marble floors that reflected candlelight like still water, ceilings painted with gods and glory, gardens so precisely designed they seemed to defy nature itself. But Versailles was built for one purpose above all others, and it was not comfort. It was power. Louis understood something most rulers never did. If you keep your enemies close, if you surround them with beauty and ceremony and endless distraction, they cannot plot against you. So he invited the nobility of France to live with him, and what looked like an honor was a trap. Versailles was a golden cage, and inside that cage, 10,000 people lived, breathed, competed, and rotted together. Here is what the architects never solved. 10,000 people, nobles, servants, soldiers, merchants, cooks, children, all of them eating, sleeping, existing inside one enormous building with no proper sewage system. No running water in the corridors, no toilets for the masses. The king had private facilities, yes. The highest nobility had close stools, velvet-covered chairs with chambers beneath. Beat. But for the rest, for the thousands of people who filled every hallway and staircase and courtyard, there was almost nothing. And so, the palace became something no one speaks of in the history books. It became a toilet. Corners, stairwells, alcoves behind curtains, the shadows between hedgerows in the famous gardens, all of it used. The wood absorbed it, the stone held it, the walls kept the memory of it for decades. Elizabeth Charlotte of the Palatinate, a woman who lived at Versailles and wrote letters about it with stunning honesty, described entire sections of the palace that were impossible to enter on certain days, not because of ceremony, not because of protocol, because the smell was unbearable. Part 3. The Body and Its Secrets. But the problem was not only architecture, it was belief. In the 17th century, across all of Europe, water was not trusted. Physicians warned that bathing opened the pores, that moisture invited disease into the body, that the skin, kept dry, formed a natural armor. And so, at the most glamorous court in the world, almost no one bathed. Not the servants, not the nobles, not, for long stretches of time, the king himself. Instead, the court practiced what they called dry cleaning. Fresh linen changed often, the body wiped, powdered, perfumed, but the skin beneath, rarely, if ever, washed. A layer accumulated, sweat, oil, the residue of days and weeks and months, seen not as filth, but as protection. Then there was fashion, the towering wigs, the elaborate hairstyles, constructed over weeks and worn for months. Perfect environments for lice. Powder was applied in great clouds, thick, white, choking. Mixed with sweat and oil, it settled into a paste. People carried long, slender scratching sticks, specifically designed to slide beneath the wig to reach the scalp without disturbing a single curl. And perfume. This is where Versailles gave the world something it had not intended to give. Not the philosophy of the Enlightenment, not the architecture that kings across Europe tried to copy. Perfume, heavy, animal, overwhelming scent, musk and civet and ambergris, substances so powerful they could stop your breath. Not to smell beautiful, not to attract, to hide, to fight the smell of 10,000 bodies and 10,000 corners and 10,000 unwashed days with something even stronger. It was a war of smell against smell, and no one was winning. Even the Louis himself, the Sun King, the God made flesh, lived entirely inside this reality. His daily routine was one of the most documented in history. He woke before an audience, dressed before an audience, ate before an audience. Even the most private moments of his body were ceremonies. And yet, behind the ceremony, the body was human. His teeth rotted and were pulled, one by one, until eating caused him constant pain. His surgeons operated on him without anesthesia, in rooms full of watching courtiers. His final years were consumed by disease, gangrene, and suffering that no amount of gold could touch. The Sun King, rotting quietly behind the mirror and the marble.
Yes, madame.
The first women at court, the burdens were doubled. Beneath the layers of silk and whalebone, beneath the powder and the perfume and the performance, was the reality of a body that no ceremony could suspend. Menstruation managed with cloth, hidden beneath heavy fabric, in a palace with no private spaces and no reliable water. Month after month, in public, in silence. And the food did not help. Meals served cold after traveling long distances from distant kitchens. Meat that had turned. Sugar consumed in quantities the human body was never designed for. Teeth blackened, stomachs turned. Disease moved through the palace like a quiet, invisible resident, finding new rooms, new bodies, new victims. Sometimes the stench and the illness became so overwhelming, the entire court would simply leave, pack up, move on, let the servants clean what could be cleaned, and return when the smell had faded enough to pretend it had never been there. Versailles still stands. You can walk those halls today. The marble is still cold and perfect. The ceilings still gleam. The hall of mirrors still catches the light the way it always did. And it smells of nothing. History has been deodorized, polished until only the beauty remains. But the truth does not disappear because no one records it. The truth is that behind every gilded surface, behind every powdered wig and embroidered glove, were 10,000 human bodies, doing what human bodies do: sweating, suffering, enduring. Louis XIV built the most magnificent monument to power the world had ever seen. And the people who lived inside it, who breathed its air and walked its corridors and bent their knees to its king, paid for that magnificence with their comfort, their health, and a dignity history politely chose to forget. Final whisper. Behind every golden surface was a reality far more human than the legend allows. Fade to silence.